Karma fam. Welcome to Family Karma Cast. This is Indra, and Deanna is super busy this week because she's starting school. Her semester starts this week, all sorts of things. So she was unable to do the recap. But lucky for me, cousin Mary is here. Hello, Mary.
Hello. Swapping another Bianco. It'll be
Yes, exactly. We got the Biancos holding it down for the recap, and so exciting. Like, I can't believe this is episode 10 of the season,
I know.
and there's so much more. And like, last season ended with episode 10, so
I know. I'm so glad it's continuing. And like I think that we can never confirm this, but I think you guys had something to do with that. Just constantly being like, okay, we actually need, the same amount of attention, same amount of episodes. So maybe next season you guys will get a reunion and then we'll know that you're
I
your true influence.
oh my gosh, I'm so annoying on Instagram with all
No,
my
it's good though. It's
posts.
like how can they have three reunions for one housewife?
Oh,
Like
okay. And also, like, I know you don't watch The Housewives, but Salt Lake City's season is notoriously known now as like one of the worst seasons. Like,
no way.
yeah, like it's been such a flop. The season finale was like super terrible. I haven't watched it, but all the
Hmm.
chatter is just like this was a waste of a season. Like, everyone feels like the women on that show are like acting, and like
Yeah.
it's really not genuine. And so I think that has just like colored. So the like people who even like don't even watch Family Karma are like, why is Salt Lake City getting 3 reunions? And word on the street is there's going to be 2 reunion episodes, and
Hmm.
then Andy's doing like a sit down interview with Jen Shaw.
Like from prison?
No, she's not going to prison until I think mid-February.
Okay.
So it's like leading up to that. But I'm kind of just like, even with that, like, whatever. Like, there's so much going on in Family Karma that like we need answers to,
Yeah.
that like probably won't be covered in this season, that it's like we need a reunion to go over all of that. Just
Yeah, you
like
want
an
updates.
episode.
Yeah, updates
Yeah,
on
and
what
it's
people
like
are
people,
going through.
and like having the aunties on, everyone's asking for that. And I'm like, yeah, if you think you're not going to have enough stuff, then like have 2 sit downs, one with
Yeah.
the kids, one with the aunties, maybe like one where like the aunties come in. Cause like on a lot of the housewives ones, they'll like have the husbands come in and like sit
Oh,
behind the
interesting.
women.
Yeah, they need to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So just bring in the moms and like have a thing.
And if the kids
I
are
don't
like
know.
being all peaceful, the aunties will go for it. They don't care. They'll fight on TV. They don't care.
They do not care. I mean, Dharma Auntie has shown time and time and again that she has no shame.
Yeah, she's a
Like,
she's a fighter.
she is a fighter for sure. So yeah, it's a whole thing. And we'll get into the auntie thing a little bit here when we see Brian and Vishal talk about
Hmm.
it. But at the start of the episode, so this episode is like kind of focused around Anisha's fashion
Yeah.
show. I feel like we're getting a lot of her story here, which is kind of nice because she has been not very much in the season.
Yeah.
um, and so I'm just like, I have some questions. I'm like, so your boyfriend isn't coming to your fashion show?
Yeah, he could sit somewhere else and just not be recorded. Like I don't understand why he
Yeah.
wasn't there at all.
Well, she said in the beginning of the season she didn't want anyone to even meet him, which I'm still very confused about. I
Y-
still don't understand that.
Yeah, it's like what I we know that he's real obviously and she got married, but it's like what are you hiding? Like which part of your life are you almost ashamed of that you don't want him to meet your friends?
Yeah.
Like I get him not wanting to meet the whole extended community and get everybody's opinions whatever, but like your friends, you're not going to like he hasn't met any of your friends. That's so strange.
Yeah, it's like, and on some level, you'd think you'd want to test it out to make sure that worked, or just figure out what that vibe will be,
Yeah.
because, sometimes partners, ideally they get along with your friends, but they're probably not going to get along with every single one.
Hmm.
And just kind of having that information is helpful, I feel,
Yeah, and how they act
like
like
8 weeks
when they
before.
share you with other people. Like right now, he gets her
Yeah.
100% of the time because she doesn't have any community in Scottsdale. So like, what if that's where she is, right? Scottsdale.
Yeah. Hmm.
But
That's where he's based.
what if he's super weird when he has to share her attention? Because that can happen, and that's like a huge red flag. Like, what if he likes having all the attention? It's like, what are you gonna do then?
I mean, the sense I get is that like she has had him meet via FaceTime a couple of people from the show, so Brian and Bali, who are her besties from the show at this
Hmm.
point. And I think everyone else is kind of like chopped liver a little bit, which is like Vishal's like I feel like chopped liver, and I would too.
Yeah, the whole first season was about how close their friendship was, and then without really anything, it's just kind of gone.
Yeah, and it got me thinking, and maybe you have something to say about this since you're like getting married soon, is like when you're like planning, like, so we know that she does get engaged and like she's
Yeah.
married. Like, this is all not a spoiler, like, everybody knows this, but like, you know, it's a big part, it's like a big step in your life. And like, if you choose to have a wedding and you like don't invite lifelong friends, like it's sort of like an indication. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, it feels like you're trying to leave like something behind. Like you're trying to not,
yeah.
like I found whenever I was nervous to mix a friend group, it's because maybe I wasn't being like my authentic self with both groups of people, like more so like in college and high school friends, then it was kind of like figuring out who I was, but that's a much younger thing. And now it's like everybody is
Yeah.
around each other all the time. But yeah, I think if I was like, I don't want this person at my wedding, I don't know. It's like I get that she wanted a smaller wedding, but it's like to not invite any of them, to not introduce any of them to your significant other, it's very, very odd.
Yeah, it's weird. And so I was just thinking, like, you're talking about this fashion show, like, this is a huge deal, which it
Hmm.
is. Like, this is
Yeah.
a huge thing for your professional career. Like, you say you've put $400,000 into this
Yeah.
business, which is like a lot of like, that's a 20% down payment on what, like a $2 million house?
Yeah, it's
Like,
insane. It's it could be
it's
everything.
like, yeah, like you could have done a lot with that, or you could have just like outright bought a house for four
Yeah.
hundred thousand dollars. Like she's so like if that were me, like I would want my person who in 8 weeks I want them to propose to me.
Yeah.
Like I would want them there to like
I love them
support
putting up the
me.
math of being like, she's saying Cinco de Mayo, and right now it's February or something. Like them being
Yeah,
like very clear about like, oh, this is actually when it's gonna happen, and she wants this very soon. And I would
yeah,
get not wanting the first introduction to be the fashion show, but it's like, how many times have
yeah.
you come back and forth between there and Miami to plan the fashion show that not one of those times your boyfriend couldn't take off to meet your friends and family so that when it
Yeah.
comes to the fashion show, he already knows them.
Yeah, and it's like I guess we'll never know like what the dynamics are behind the scenes. Like is it that he offered to go and she
Yeah.
said no, I don't want you to come? Is it like he really can't like isn't willing to take the time off or whatever? It sounds like he has like a very demanding job in terms of time
Yeah.
from what she's just like said on her podcasts and whatever. But still, it's like I don't know. And everyone wants different things from their relationship. And clearly, Anisha is someone who doesn't want someone who's like smothering her in terms
Yeah.
of space. So maybe she's truly okay with that. And that's like it's her relationship. But it's like I wouldn't be cool with that.
No, I'm hoping she told him not to come because if he didn't even offer, and I understand having a demanding job and I get it, like he can't work from home if he's a doctor, right?
Yeah.
He can't work from home if that's his job. So it's not as flexible, but it's like if you can't make it there for the fashion show to not go for any part of it feels weird because
Yeah.
you get days off. You get time off. It's
Yeah.
like they can't make you work 100% of the time. And I get being tired, but it's like if you're going to marry this person, you have to
Yeah.
figure out how to balance your life with your job and figure out how to be there in these big moments. And it's like this kind of sounded like her last ditch effort to save her fashion brand,
Mm-hmm.
that I would want to be there for that, even if I'm like lingering in the background.
Yeah, absolutely. So who knows? Maybe she'll say more about that. We are supposed to interview her actually
Oh,
tomorrow,
wow.
Deanna and I.
Oh my
So
gosh.
it's good. They haven't given us a ton of time, and I'm not even sure they like are trying to change the times and stuff. So I hope it still happens, but
That would be huge. I
maybe
have
we
so
can
many
get some
questions.
more. Yeah, I know.
I
Tell
have
me what
questions
all of your
about the
questions
fashion
are.
line altogether. Like, I don't work in
Yeah, let's
fashion.
just talk about the whole show.
I don't work in fashion, but when it came in those like Amazon bag looking things, I was like, this can't be the way that it works. She was like, "Oh my God, I'm waiting on this huge shipment." And it was two packages sitting on a table. I was like, "This
I
can't
know.
be it."
I know. When they were like, when they had the thing that's like Anisha's fashion show and it
Yeah,
like pointed literally to two like
to two
plastic,
packages
it
on the
wasn't
ground.
even boxes.
No, they were taped so tight. And then when she had them up on the rack and it was like four looks, I was like, "Wait, this can't. You need more, right?" Like,
Yeah, I don't know. So her line is up on shopcurrently.com for
oh
anyone
wait.
who's interested in looking.
Okay, so this is what didn't we talk about that we thought maybe she was putting the clothes up after the fashion show aired on TV?
Yeah, and I think maybe that's what
That's
happened.
smart. That's smart.
Um, and I mean, she did partner with Rhea Collective, who, so like half of the fashions presumably we saw were from them. And then they said like there was a brand called Country Made
Yeah,
on there
that seemed to
too for the
be
men.
for the men. I like those jackets and I loved the outfit. I loved the look that Monica was wearing and then the look that Bali ended up
Yes.
wearing at the end. Because I agreed with her. I was like, this dress that she wanted to put Bali in shouldn't close the
No.
show and doesn't really fit Bali's vibe. But the sari dress combo, the blue one, was beautiful.
It was beautiful. And the fact that it was zip up was
Yeah,
like,
huge.
I was like, where can I get one of the, like, that was the most appealing thing to me about Anisha's line was like, the ease of
Hmm.
this Indo-Western thing is like really in, which I'm loving as
Yeah.
like an Indo-Western
Yeah.
person. and, and just like putting on a sari is such a pain in the ass. I honestly have worn a sari like maybe once in my life because like
Yeah.
I needed my mom there to help me put it on.
Yeah.
like
I get TikToks
so
about like trying to figure out how to wrap it. And this one girl was
oh
like,
my god.
I scoured YouTube to figure out videos because I was so tired of going to family events and waiting 45 minutes for an auntie for it to be my turn. And I was like, that makes so much sense trying to figure it out. Wait, did I ever tell you about
Yeah.
when I went to an Indian wedding?
No, tell me,
So
tell me.
I went to an Indian wedding and a girl I grew up with, she was Indian and I was going with her with one of our other friends. And so she lent us two outfits to go to another friend's wedding that was going to be 2 days. One day was going to be, the Indian ceremony, and then the next day was going to be the Catholic
Mm-hmm.
ceremony. And so my friend Nikita thought that it was a super formal event. So we were thinking we were going to get like the crop top and skirt with the wrap, like very
Yeah.
cute kind of vibe. And she gave us like, I forget what they were called, but it was like almost like a long tunic with the super tight pants underneath
Yes.
and then just a drape over the side. I'm so sorry, I forget what it's called.
It's called a salvar kameez.
Yes.
And it's like a more fancy than casual, but it's not the fanciest. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And so she gave us those and we put them on and they're like perfectly measured to her body and to her sister's body whose dress I was
Yeah.
borrowing. So like the armpit was so tight, I was sweating through the whole
Oh
thing.
no.
And then my boobs looked like they were packed into this sausage. And I was like, it's okay. Like, all the white people are going to be figuring this out. They're going to have terrible outfits on. And me and my friend Joe get on the bus and we're the only white people in the outfits. And we're like, oh my God, we fucked up. We're culturally appropriating. We really messed up. Like
Oh
we really
no.
messed up. But then we get off the bus and see more people and more people are dressed like with the typical things you expect to see at an Indian wedding, but a lot of them had like these gorgeous skirts and these crop tops on. So me and Joe just spent the whole day
Oh.
being like, we look so bad. And, like, the whole wedding, we were just like, oh my God, like we really tried to commit and it just backfired on us. But the wedding was
No.
awesome and the music was beautiful, but It was
I,
so
you know, I have been there before too, even as someone like I just hadn't been to India in a while and I
yeah,
had to go to an Indian wedding. And so I had to like borrow clothes from someone and they fit me, but they were like not dressy enough for the
yeah.
occasion. And I was like, ugh, I'm that person
You're
who's
like, I did it.
like,
It's so
oh my,
uncomfortable to like be in the wrong thing or feel
yes.
like self-conscious at one of those events that's so long. And I was just like, tried to take pictures to make ourselves feel better, but the pictures look so bad. And we got like one incredible picture. And we literally catfished everybody. Everyone was like, "You guys look so beautiful at that wedding." We're like, "It's just this one
You're like,
picture."
it took us 100 tries, but we got it
And we nearly
right.
had a panic attack while we were trying to figure it out.
Yeah, it's well, you know now, like I have a friend who's actually going to an Indian wedding with her husband in India and she's not Indian. And
Yeah,
so she was like asking me about some stuff and we were talking about like so apparently Rent the Runway now has Indian bride or Indian wedding
that's
attire
so gorgeous. I love that for them.
and like so smart
Yeah,
because
such a good
that's like
idea.
precisely what people need it for
Yeah.
because they're not going to be wearing these. They just want to rent them. There's a website I heard about called Borrow the Bazaar that also
Mm.
does rentals. Ria Collective, who was featured in this episode, they started off as like a rental company
Oh,
for
that's
Indian
awesome.
wedding attire, but have like changed their focus a little bit. So yeah, I loved the zip up sari. I also loved Monica's outfit. I thought that
It was
like
so cute.
it was like potentially like Anisha's like I didn't design one for you because we weren't speaking at the time, but Monica
Yeah.
ended up in like the best piece for her anyway.
I think of
Which
the montage of them trying to try on the outfits and them not fitting, I think made Monica feel a little bit better about not having
yeah,
one for her because they all had to switch them up anyway.
exactly. I am so sad that we couldn't go because we were actually invited to this
You
fashion show,
were?
Deanna and I. Yes, we were invited to
Oh my God,
attend,
that's
which was
awesome.
so sweet. But we weren't able to go for various reasons. It was last March,
Oh
and
yeah.
um, yeah, there were, yeah, but it was. I'm so glad it was like a great success and so many
Yeah, it looked
people
awesome.
attended. I love the part when Vishal's like, last night I ate 20 chicken nuggets
Yeah.
and french fries and a chicken sandwich.
And she's like, right before my fashion show? It's like, but Vishal's body is still perfect, so
Yeah,
obviously
his
he's
abs
fine.
were, yeah, he's like, he could eat like the entire McDonald's menu in one sitting and he'd still look like totally shredded.
Yeah, because he probably got up and worked out for 2 hours before the fashion show and
Yeah,
then came.
totally. I liked how Chitraanti was like, you should have put us on the runway.
Yeah,
Like, and I would have loved to see the aunties on the
it would have been
runway.
awesome. Maybe the next collection can be like, the more mature line or whatever they would call it and have the aunties there.
Yeah,
That'd be so awesome.
totally. But I love it because like my brother's getting married in June and there's gonna be Indian elements to it. And so I'm like, I need to start finding stuff. And now there are
Get the
just
Bali
so many
dress.
more options. Yes, I know. I'm like, maybe I'll get that. Maybe I'll get some other things. So there's lots of options these days. I don't have
Yeah.
to like send my measurements to India and have like a relative buy something for me
Yeah.
and
And
have
have it
it
like
shipped,
measured for
like
each part of your body and then can never lend it to anyone
literally
else.
that's how they do it though. It's like it's so specific. Like yeah. So yeah, I'm into the more modern stuff that's coming out now. Okay. Okay, so then there's Amrit and Nicholas. They go to
Mhm.
Atlanta with Amrit's parents to see the venue and they've chosen Atlanta because Amrit went to Emory, which is in Atlanta, so he has
Mhm.
like a connection to that. But also he said that they wanted a place that wasn't like favorable to either set family. That was
Which
like
is
middle
sweet.
ground. Yeah, it was sweet. It was a little in conflict with some of the other stuff that goes on in the
Well, I
episode,
was
I
gonna say, yeah.
felt. But yeah, it was I like that kind of sentiment. They confirm that the budget is over six figures for the
I mean,
wedding.
I'm not, I'm not surprised.
I'm
It's
not at all either.
people don't I bet that's even them understating it because people don't really talk about how much it actually costs to throw one of these things. And
Yeah.
it's like without even trying, if you're not careful, you can end up there like in a second, especially with how many
Yeah.
people that they're trying to invite that I feel like when I watch it, feel like I have such a mind for these things now. Obviously, my prices are New York, so they're probably more expensive than Georgia because everything in New
Yeah.
York is more expensive because it's so fucking annoying. And why does anyone live here? But anyway, um, I feel like if this is less than 300K, I'll be very surprised.
Yeah, I mean, because think about it, it's not just like one day of
It's
events.
four,
It's
yeah,
three or four. Yeah. So like you have to feed all those people. Like what are the biggest costs at a wedding? I feel like it's always like the food
yeah,
and flowers, like decorations and
flowers and like the live music is so expensive. Like if they have a band
yeah.
instead of a DJ, we're not doing this, but like lighting is really, really expensive. Like some people can
Oh.
spend like 40K just on lighting if they don't like the way the place looks. And
Oh
I'm
my
guessing
God.
that
And
the
they're
show you will pay for that because they need it to look a certain way for TV, but
yes.
that's like a whole other expense that can come out too.
Well, just like so, they got married. They put like obviously we've seen the pictures on
Hmm.
Instagram. Like, so you see like the outdoor area where they're gonna do the tea dance,
Yeah,
which also I loved that he explained what that was because I
I know. I
didn't know what
appreciated
it was.
it.
Yeah. But like if you see the way the space is transformed for the actual tea dance, I mean, it looks like stunning and
Oh
it's
yeah.
like I can't even imagine how much the decorations must have cost for
And
that.
a planner helping them that much is probably like
Yeah.
10 to 20K alone. Like we don't have a planner
Yeah.
because it's like it's sometimes they're on percentage of how much you spend on the wedding and sometimes it's like a set amount. Um,
Yeah.
but if they're not in Georgia and she's doing all these pieces and it's this elaborate, it's probably so expensive.
Oh my God. It's wild. So
I loved his mom being like, what about a rainbow flag uh curtains? And he's like, that's tacky, but we appreciate you.
yeah, I know. He's like, that's kind of tacky, but we appreciate the
We appreciate the sentiment. Thank you
sentiment.
so much.
Also, did you catch when she said that their jeans looked gay?
Yeah.
I, I was like,
She was like,
do
I
you
like
think
your
she,
jeans. Very gay.
yeah. I was like, does she mean like gay, like they are like gay, or does she mean like gay in the like term of like happy, like or
I
like
think she
fun
was
or
like using
whatever?
it like stylish, like very like
Yeah,
she was like, "Oh, I like your jeans, very gay, like very like on trend with what she would
yeah.
expect." I don't know. It was really funny.
Well, in any case, it seemed to make sense to everyone in the room. I was just
Yeah.
like, okay.
Okay, this is a
um,
compliment.
yes, definitely. And so we do find out a little bit more about Nicholas's parents and kind of where they're coming from. Like they just don't want to be filmed. And
Yeah.
so they're trying to figure out like if Nicholas's mom wants to make a speech, like
Yeah.
absolutely that takes precedent over the filming. So how do they set that up so that she doesn't have to feel uncomfortable about that?
Yeah.
So, and that's definitely an extra layer of stress. And you can see these two are stressed.
Oh, it's like
Like,
it's wearing on them. Like they're constant, like just a
oh
constant
my.
furrowed brow. And I feel like since Nicholas has blue eyes, it's always so easy when someone with blue eyes is about to cry. Like you can always tell. And
Oh,
it's just like, oh,
I know.
it
And
just
like at that lunch that they had at the place, like to see where they're going to do the Sangeet, like they're like, oh, yeah, we're having a great time. And he's like, I'm tired.
yeah.
like,
Yeah, he's like, I'm exhausted. Everything about this is exhausting. And it's like,
yeah.
it's so sad. And I think like the way that your family acts during wedding planning can really illuminate how they're going to act about even bigger stuff in
Yeah.
your life. And I think like them talking about having a family and if his parents want this big of a step back from like his wedding, how are they going to treat the grandkids? And I just
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine having to deal with that on top of the stress of planning this whole event anyway, and then worrying about the future in that specific way.
Oh my gosh, I know. It's like if I were them at this point, maybe this happens to a lot of couples where the stress is just like getting and they're like, "Nope, we're just going to elope."
Yeah. We
You
talk
know?
about it like once a week where we're like, if we get like an annoying email, we're like, that's it. Let's just go. We're out of here. Because I mean, it's right there. It's just City Hall. It's right there at any time. We could just do it. But it's almost like a power card
100.
over like our parents. I'm like, if you guys are being
Yeah.
annoying, we're just gonna do it. Like we're just gonna
Yeah. So this is something that like I feel like I really enjoy kind of seeing like I don't like seeing Amrit and Nicholas have problems obviously
No.
or but I think that they're dealing with some really real things which I could really relate to and I'm curious how you feel about it like especially going into planning a wedding of your
Yeah.
own is like the families inevitably get involved,
Yeah.
right? And like there is probably going to be imbalances no matter what your circumstances. And so, like, you don't have to say anything you don't want to say, but
No,
is there
yeah.
anything about your process that's felt like that you can relate to in this situation?
Yeah, it just feels like it's so much pressure and then you get stressed. Like for me personally, like, Ethan and I are a cis hetero couple, so we don't have any of these layers involved. So like can only like be compile that on top of everything else. It's like for us, it's just like you get so sensitive about this event and then you feel stupid because you're like, oh, it's just a dance party. But then you're like, oh, it's not just a
Yeah.
dance party. So it's like this constant back and forth of feeling really dumb that this big event is making you stressed out. But it is stressful because it highlights like every family dynamic in a very specific way that like for us it's like if people are being uncomfortable or if people are being like nosy or super opinionated, you just can't help but think like, oh, this is going to be how they are forever, because it really is combining two families. And that's tricky, as everybody knows, to combine your family with another person's is like figuring out their dynamic in a super isolated way.
Yeah.
And so I think like the parents not being involved at all is really tough.
Yeah, it is really tough. And it's like Nicholas is clearly like hurt about it.
Yeah.
In a way. Yeah, I think that like it's hard for him and it's also like I you can see like he says like my parents are not monsters and I
No.
feel like it's very important that he said that because we all know people who have beliefs that we really don't like that are
Yeah.
close to us
Yeah.
and it doesn't mean that we don't love them or like they don't have redeeming qualities and things like that. And Nicholas is very close to his family, you can
Yeah. He
tell. And
talks to his mom every day.
yeah, it's got to be hard to like not have them involved in so many parts of it and then to also feel like, he says like it feels like Armit's parents are a little bit too involved at times.
Yeah.
Like I didn't want to do the barat, but then they looked like they were going to cry, so
So
I
I
like
had to do
agreed to
it.
do it. Yeah, and it's like, all of these things. I mean, these are the reasons precisely why I have never wanted to have a wedding of my own is cuz
Hmm.
I just know shit would come up and
Yeah.
I'm just like, is it worth it to
That's what you think
me?
the whole time is like, is it worth it? But it's like for us, at least it's been a good opportunity for us to have conversations about like
Yeah.
how we're going to be setting up like boundaries between both us and both of our parents and like doing that out of love because
Yes.
we both do. Ethan and I both love our parents so much, but they both have their shit and they think,
Yeah.
can speak for my parents. They think that my mom in particular thinks that she knows best all the time. And so when she's being
Mhm.
opinionated, she's coming from a real place of love. And so but I'm like, I have to figure out my own distance from it. And I think
Yeah.
when you're dating or even living together, you're still in your little bubble. And so
Yep.
when you involve everyone else, like when you have a child and you see your parents with the child, it's like you're involving both the families at that point and they're like coming into it.
Yes.
And so it's been a good opportunity for us to have those conversations about like, okay, how are we going to figure out how to like protect our bubble and keep our bubble like
Yeah.
functioning our own, especially when like there's hopefully we have the chance to, bring children into the world and like what their relationship is
Mhm.
going to be like with both sets of grandparents is important.
Yeah, and I think that's such a good way to do it is like it's an opportunity to explore that because
Yeah.
Patrick and I are not married, we never had a wedding and anything like that, but we've come to points in our relationship relationship where we've needed to sort of
Yeah.
figure out those boundaries with our family.
Yeah.
Like it was going to happen one way or the other. So
Yeah. Life
like,
is gonna
you
force you
know,
into it. So
yeah, totally. And I think what Amrit was saying about his relationship and needing to draw boundaries, kind of like, I do feel an obligation to my parents. I have
uh-huh.
these, like, as immigrants, they came here, they've given me so much, like, but I also can't ignore my fiance,
Yeah.
his needs for that. And so he's just trying to navigate that. And I have gone through something very similar, which
Hmm.
I don't know if it's because I also come from a similar immigrant background, or maybe that's just like we happen to align on stuff like that. But I think this probably happens to a lot of people who are
Yeah.
close with their families. Like, and when you start your own family, like your allegiances need to shift a little bit
Yeah.
in ways that can be really hard. And I think I found it particularly hard as like I'm the youngest of three children. I
Oh
think birth
yeah.
order is big
Birth
in
order
this
plays a huge
too.
role. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I like, not that this is like a therapy session for me, but like
We
this is
probably
like,
need
these
it
are
anyway.
things, yeah, these are things that I think about, and I appreciated seeing that
Me
sort
too.
of explored on this episode. And of course it like comes to a head with the conversation about, it's when they start talking about their kid's last name,
Yeah, that's hard.
and I'm like, all the wedding stuff, like, whatever. Like, this is really a big thing to figure out. And
Yeah. It
that
serves as like,
conversation in the park, wow.
oh yeah, that was hard to watch, but I like, oh, I'm glad that they did it. Like I'm glad that they were willing to have
Yeah.
that conversation so openly, because Ethan watched this episode with me and literally we had a conversation about names because of
Yeah.
this episode. And I have decided to change my last name, like with the caveat that like if it doesn't feel right when I do it, I'm gonna switch it back like Deanna did. If it
Y-
doesn't feel like it fits me, then I'll change it back. But I was like, you take for granted when it's never expected that you change your name, what it's like
Yeah.
to actually change your name and what it's like to, after 30 years be like, oh, I'm this person now. And like if you
Yep.
take it out, you're like, oh, it's just a name, but it's like, no, that's who I am. Like I've been Mary
Yep.
Bianco my whole life, and being Mary Schenberg shouldn't be a different person, but feels like a different person for right now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and Ethan was like, yeah, what about a hyphen? Like, why can't they figure it out? They love each other. I'm like, they do love each other, but that's why they have to like, that's why they both need to respect why the other person doesn't want to jump on changing their name. And
Yeah.
Amrit playing the card of my family's been more supportive than your family.
Yeah. Oof.
I get the impulse to bring that up because I'm sure
Yeah.
that on Nicholas's behalf, Amrit is harboring some resentment towards like them because of how much hurt
Yeah.
they've caused his partner. That he thought like, oh, obviously Nicholas wants a fresh start and wants to join this like loving, supportive community. But for Nicholas, it's like, well, you're pointing out the thing that's the biggest struggle for me right now.
Yeah. Yes. And there's so much in this. I mean, like, to me, I don't know when I decided, but I just like, my name is, I can't change it. Like,
Yeah,
I never will be able to. And that's just me,
yeah,
But I do think, I also feel like it's unfair that, like, in heteronormative
mm-hmm.
relationships, the woman is the one forced to
And
choose.
it's just assumed like it's never
It's just
like it's not a
assumed.
conversation.
No, and it should be a conversation. And I don't know. Have you like, we hyphenated our children's last names, so they're
Yeah,
Raj Garrity. I kept my name as it is. Patrick kept his name as it is. It
I
sounds
like
like
that.
Amrita Nicholas might
They might end up doing that.
all take on like a family, a new last name as a family, which I've also seen people do. And I hear all the time, like, I want to have the same last name as my kids. And
Yeah,
like, I feel like my name is very clearly reflected in my children's last names because it's
yeah,
hyphenated, and I'm okay with that. But I do hear from people all the time that they like don't like hyphenated half last
yeah.
names. Have you heard that?
I've heard that, and like, I'm just like, who cares? Also, yours sounds like a real last name. Like, it doesn't sound hyphenated. Like you say, Raj Garrity, it sounds like it just kind of like flows off.
Yeah.
Like it all goes together. I think
Yeah.
like, I think people are like, oh, it's clunky. It's like, but but who cares? It's not your name. I've been tossing
Yeah.
around like with the kids if like their middle name would be Bianco and
Yeah.
like what it would be, but it's like if people want to hyphenate, let them hyphenate, and then their kids can
Yeah.
figure it out later what they're going to do when they get married and start a family. If they decide to do that,
Totally.
that's up to them. Because well, you know, I work with my most of my clients in immigration are from South America, and
Mhm.
majority of them have two last names, and one last name
Mhm.
is from their mother and one last name is from their father. And when they get like, when you get married, you usually keep your name or you drop one
Yeah.
name, but you still get to keep it, and the kids get one of each. And I just think like that's just such a normal naming concept to them that like why can't
Yeah.
that just be carried through that they have two last names, and every
Yeah.
government form is a space for two last names, and when they get married they
Yeah.
can figure out if they want to drop one or if they want to combine one or whatever.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's like there shouldn't be hard and fast rules about this,
Mm-mm.
and I think Amit's parents are so lovely in so many ways and have done so much. This was the first time that I felt a little bit like they weren't supporting Nicholas. Like
Yeah.
when Amit's dad said it's important to me that the Kapai name goes on, like, and then he made a comment about like if it's a daughter, it doesn't matter, but if it's a son,
Yeah.
it does. Like, I was like, oh, okay, here's the like old school Indian, but not even just Indian, like
No, just
patriarchal, like,
patriarchal vibe.
yeah,
And I appreciated Nicholas stepping up to them, being like, this isn't like he's the bride and you're giving him away and I'm taking him. Like, I'm not like
yeah,
taking him from your family. He's still in your family. And it's like, yeah, what is there's two sides to both coins because like why do they care about carrying on the legacy of a name for such a long time? But then also why does it hurt my feelings when it's assumed that I'll give up my name? It's like it's
yeah,
very
yeah.
layered. Yeah.
And the part where, again, back to like Amit saying, like, well, my family has been more involved, and Nicholas being like, I am not on board with that, and kind of
No.
snapping. I think it's like Amrit is sort of missing in this conversation that, like, the way his parents behave and Nicholas's identity are two very different things.
100%.
And Nicholas's name is his name. Like, and I feel this very strongly about my own name. Like,
Yeah.
it's my name and it will be until the day I die. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter like what happens to me, what relationships I'm in, whatever. Like, and it seems like Nicholas sort of feels that way too. And
Yeah.
like, and maybe he's willing to add Kapai to his name, but he doesn't want to let go of Kachukas, which is his last name.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think Kapai Kachukas is a really cool last
I think it's
name.
dope. Like I think it could work. I think it'd be great.
Yeah. And who
Also,
knows?
Kapai as a kid's first name is like also kind of a really cool name. So like
Yeah.
Kapai works better than
Yes.
I already forgot how to say Nicholas's name. It works better
Kachukas,
as a
it's
first
so
name.
hard.
So
Yeah.
then that's like the other, side of the conversation that maybe it'll be another part of the name. But
Yes.
yeah, I think it's just like taken for granted, and Nicholas talking about how long it took him to accept himself and to come out and to
Yeah.
really grapple with his relationship. His name has been there for him the entire time. And so now
Yeah.
it's his own identity, and he became who he is with that name on. And just because it's attached to people who might not accept him, he loves them and he loves
Yeah.
himself, and he's come a really long way with that name. That why is it just assumed that he'll give it up?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was glad to see him stand up for himself. And I hope that
Hmm.
whatever decision they come to, I don't know where they are in their journey to start a family, but I hope that it feels good to both of them because that's
Yeah.
what's important is like whatever you choose, whatever, fuck what everyone else thinks. It
Yeah.
needs to feel good to both of you. And, it was pretty like intense when Nicholas was like, I don't know if it's like you being ashamed of being gay and not liking yourself. Like
Yeah.
that was like pretty intense. And, Amrit didn't react like too badly, but it was like, or
No,
like he didn't really react,
that felt
at least
very
from,
real.
yeah, that was
Like
very real.
there were other moments in this episode where I was like, that feels like a producer put you up to it. But the stuff between Amrit and Nicholas, I was like, this feels very raw and very real, and like the cameras cut and they talked for 6 hours about it after. Like it
Oh,
was not,
yes.
we caught like a moment of what this conversation has been, but like I can only imagine how many more days it went on outside of the camera.
Yeah, absolutely. And I put up something on Instagram asking people what they thought about it, and someone was like, "Oh, they should have been talking about this a long time ago." And I'm like, "Not necessarily. Like sometimes things happen in life, these big things that like you just don't know the questions to ask because you haven't
Yeah.
been confronted with them. And so like this is
Yeah.
coming up for them now. Maybe it's not opportune or whatever, but maybe it is. Maybe it's just the right time to talk about it. Like,
Or like they're human beings and they knew that this was going to be a shitty, hard conversation. So they put it off. It's
yeah.
like, that's like people forget, like, with wedding stuff, it's like the stupidest, it's like procrastination when you're stressed. It's like the stupidest thing, like I'll forget to do. It's like, I'll be stressed about something else and I'm like, well, I'm not reaching out to the hotels. I don't have time. It's like, it's just the stupidest thing that you'll put off because
Yeah.
you're stressed about something else. Like,
Yeah.
so dumb.
No, totally. So I just appreciated all the conversations that they had this episode, particularly the last one,
Yeah.
because it did feel very authentic. One that felt a little less authentic was maybe the golf
That's
chat.
exactly the one that I was talking about. I was like, Vishal, come on. Even the way he delivered, well, then maybe your mom shouldn't have been at my wedding. I was like, come on. You
I
don't feel
know.
that way.
And Brian's like, well, maybe the Bennies don't need to come around anymore. And like,
I
it
was
was
like,
just,
it was
I
so
did think it
bitchy.
was like a little out of pocket for Vishal's brother to keep pushing, like, was your mom drinking at the wedding?
Yeah,
Like,
that was like to be like, my mom would never. It's like, it's one thing to be defensive of your mom when she's being attacked, but it's
yeah,
also another thing to be in denial about how your mom acts at these things. And it's like,
yeah,
his mom, and I don't think women have to be friendly. I think that that's like, you know, an
yeah,
off-putting thing that gets put on women, but she's not that friendly, and that's like, that's okay. It doesn't have
no,
to be this big deal. But then like doubling down and being like, your mom must have been blackout. It's like, she's a grown woman. She's not
no,
blacking out in an event. Like, meanwhile,
no.
it was the daytime and it was 4 days. Do you think that she was blacked out for 4 days? Like, come on.
No, no. And I think one of the like most on point things that Brian has said this season, and I'm going to say maybe the only on point thing
Yeah.
Brian has said this season, was when he was like, this all stems from that lunch that they had. And
Yeah.
like, and it's true. Like, that's where this
Yeah.
comes from. Like, Reshmanti didn't appreciate something Dharma did, which I still don't truly understand myself because she seemed like she was just trying to help.
Yeah.
But um yeah, I mean, I think she like did ignore her at the wedding, and that's not cool. But also like Dharma auntie, just let it go.
Just let it
You
go. It
know?
doesn't need to be this like long so you're not best friends. It doesn't need to be this
Yeah.
long standing like issue, and you guys don't, you guys don't get along anymore. It's like, whatever. You don't get along with
Yeah.
everybody. You guys are in a big community. Be cordial to
Yeah.
each other. Go to each other's big life events. Send the check, do whatever, and call it done.
Yeah.
It's like, it is what it is. But I I was just laughing at like, they're standing in the rain. First of all, I'm not a golfer. I'm okay at golf. They are
Yeah.
terrible at golf. Like, that was, those swings were the worst I've ever seen in my life. Like, it
I'm
was, and
glad.
yeah, my fiance is a very good golfer, and he was like,
Oh,
"Have these guys ever been at?" First, he goes, "Holy shit, these guys are gorgeous." That was his first comment. He
yeah.
was like, "He goes, where do these guys come
True.
from? Holy shit!" And I was like, "Yeah, this is yeah, they are like this." And then he
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, they're terrible at golfing." That he's like, "That makes me feel a little bit better. Like, they don't have
Yeah.
everything."
Yeah, I'm glad to have that perspective because I know like less than zero about golf. So
Yeah,
I was like, oh, it looks fine, but yeah, apparently not.
no, it was,
There, yeah. So that was kind of like a non thing. We have Rishi once again saying like, oh, we're solid, like everything's good with the relationship. When I'm just not really sure about that,
yeah,
which transitions into Monica kind of giving us an update on her life, which is that she has made the big decision to leave her corporate tech job,
good for her.
which it sounds like she's been working a similar job or the same job since she graduated college in her early 20s. So that's like nearly a decade. And yeah, good for her.
Yeah.
Like, really happy for her.
Yeah, yeah, it just was I'm glad she's doing it for herself because I think like
Yeah.
when she talks about herself, you know, being fitting all these boxes and stuff and it's fine to want to be all those things, but make sure you're doing it for you. So her quitting her job, I was like, I really do feel
Yeah.
like she's actually doing it for herself. Yeah.
Yes. And her whole rhetoric has changed, you know?
Yeah.
She's like just telling her dad, like, getting married and having kids is not the goal in my life
No.
anymore. Or like, I want those things, but I don't want it to be the focal point of my life. Like, she's interested in her career and her potential, and like, she's killing it. Like, if you
Yeah.
haven't seen the amazing photos of her
So
feature in
incredible.
Harper's Bazaar, like, everyone's asking if like the guy in the photos, because they're like wedding photos,
Yeah.
like wedding style design stuff, but the model is just a model. It's not her
Yeah.
boyfriend or anything like that. But
That would be crazy to do a wedding shoot with just the
yeah,
boyfriend. Like that would be such a mind fuck. But
I know.
that shoot was so gorgeous. She's so beautiful, and just seeing her like she should be an influencer. Like she should just lean
Yes.
into the influencer model space because she's
Yeah.
got like the face and personality for it, and it seems to make her happier. And she
Yeah.
loves to dance and include all that, so it's great.
And I mean, I think she is an influencer at this point. She has like a
Yeah,
pretty large TikTok following, a large Instagram like, I see her doing ads on her stories
yeah,
and stuff on Instagram or even in her grid. So like, yeah, like, make that money. Like, do it how you want to do. And she says she wants to be creative, and like, this is your
yeah,
chance to do that. And like it or not, getting on one of these Bravo shows gives you the platform to do that. And she's making the most of it. And I'm
yeah,
really happy for her. And like, and she gets emotional kind of talking about how I think they kind of tried to make it look like she was getting emotional about Rish. I think she was getting emotional about this big shift she's made,
yeah, yeah,
and like the way she thinks about her life and the world. She's like, for so long, I felt like I needed to be this good Indian girl and do things all this certain way. And now I'm trying to change things. And that's really
yeah,
hard. Like, it's
yeah.
classic quarter life crisis that she's going through.
And I think it's like, I
Um,
think it's just cool to see because my mom has always told me, she's like, 30 is when you'll feel really confident in your life and not that you'll have your shit together or whatever, but that you'll feel like you can trust your own instincts and you can trust what like you should do for yourself. And so seeing her as someone who's recently 30, just like
yeah.
really owning that and leaning into, you know, taking care of her shit and taking care of herself outside of expectation, I think is awesome.
It's so awesome. And what she said about Rish, she's like, I'm just beginning to wonder if he really even wants to get engaged. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's what we've been saying. Like, it does not seem
No.
like he wants to. So, we'll see more. The finale is slated for the last weekend in February. So I'm hoping we get like 6 more episodes,
I
five
think
more
it could be.
episodes. Yeah. So there's a lot more to explore in this season. Like, there's so much more we need to see between them. We need to see
Yeah.
with the wedding. Like,
Is the wedding next
um,
week?
I don't think the wedding is next week. I'm going to assume the wedding will be the season finale,
Oh,
actually.
that would be
Or
so
maybe
awesome.
I know, I can't wait to see theirs. And it's like, I'm a little nervous about how people are going to compare our wedding to Vishal and Richa's, but it's like, these are two completely different events. Like,
If you see
I would
Cirque
not
du
compare
Soleil
them.
at a wedding, you're not like expecting every wedding after that to have Cirque du Soleil at it. At that point, you're kind of like, oh, this is too much. Did Deanna tell you? Oh no, Deanna didn't get to go. Our cousin Nina,
Uh-huh.
she's so sweet, but she's definitely leaned into the more stereotypical Italian American vibe in terms of like being a little bit more guided and that aesthetic.
Yeah.
And so her wedding was last October, and like they like our wedding is on a farm. It's gonna be nice, but it's like on a farm. We have a
Yeah.
band. It's very like it's very me and Ethan, but it's a lot more calm. Nina's was at this massive venue that looked like a mansion with tons of marble, tons of like
Oh,
um
yes.
tons of chandeliers. And at one point during the cocktail hour, all of a sudden this countdown starts playing. First of all, the cocktail hour is like there's like 14 different stations. There's a boat in the middle that's serving sushi. It's like
Oh my
it's just everything is so chaotic. Then all of a sudden this like countdown starts from 10 and smoke starts coming out of this one corner. And I'm like, what the fuck is this gonna be? Like, what is gonna happen? And she's all of a sudden this like platform starts lowering from the ceiling. And
Oh
I'm
my
like,
God.
is there like a rapper or a DJ on there? Like, what's
Yeah.
going on? And finally it lands and it's a bartender like shaking, shaking, spinning bottles and stuff and doing like bottle tricks. And that was how they announced their specialty cocktail for the evening was this
Oh.
bartender coming down on a bar from the ceiling and then like, spinning it around. And me and Ethan are at this wedding and we literally put the deposit like on our menu the week before. We're like, oh my
Yeah.
God, what's going on?
Wow. I bet that bartender was like, wow, I did not know that this was going to be part of the
And
job.
it just really, I mean, he was a performer. It really, I wish I
Oh
filmed
my
it because I
God.
was just too stunned to even pick up my phone to like think about recording it. But we were just like, and my dad was like, I am not paying for something like that. I was like, I know, it's okay. Like,
Yeah.
I also don't need this.
Yeah, I mean, just the theatrics, like the smoke machine, the
Yeah.
like all the like mechanics to make something lower
The
from the
fact that that
ceiling.
venue just like has that as an option and like and to just
Wow.
do it. And so that's kind of what I was thinking about through this is like my cousin Nina's wedding came first. It was like super theatrical, tons of smoke, tons of lighting. Like when they
Yeah.
entered, they came in on like a spinning stage and then it just is
Wow.
and it was the whole time you're there, you're like, this is so perfect for them. Like, and that's
Yeah.
the good part about weddings is like if you can manage to keep other people's opinions out of it, you can really do a day that feels like you. So like
Yes.
like Vishal's wedding felt like him. Like, you know, it was
Yeah.
very theatrical, very showy, very like, you know, and Vishal will say this, he loves attention and he loves and it was very attention getting. And then like Amrit and Nicholas's, I get the idea that it's gonna be a bit more like intimate and romantic. And that's
Yeah.
perfect because everyone can get what they want.
Exactly. And like
Hmm.
there are no yeah. I mean, I as someone who has been to weddings, like I don't really compare one to another.
No,
It
you
is always
can't.
very specific to the couple. Like
Yeah.
and like there are some weddings where I've had a better time than others or
Yeah.
whatever for whatever reason, but
But
it's
it's not because
like
of the circus performers. It's usually like, oh, the bar didn't
yeah.
have enough people staffing it and we had to wait like 45 minutes for a drink or something. Like,
Yeah. But I'm just thinking like, okay, you have the technology to have a smoke machine and a platform lower from the ceiling. Like,
yeah.
is the best use of this to announce your signature cocktail? Or
I didn't personally think so. Like I was with one of my uncles and I was like, "Oh, I really thought that that was going to be like a rapper." And he was like, "Oh, like this girl travels a little bit and she thinks that everything has to be whatever." And I was like, "No, but like didn't you kind of expect it to be something other than like a cocktail coming down the ceiling? Like it was all this build up." I was like, "I'm not even being a snob about this. I'm just
no,
asking."
it's
Like,
like yeah, like I really just thought it was going to be something different. Yeah.
yeah.
No, it's well, you know, at least it was a surprise.
It was a huge, huge surprise. And like I've never seen anything like it, and I don't know if I'll ever see anything like it again. Like all of us were just like, "Oh my God!" Like this is
Yeah.
wild.
That is wild. So yeah, I think that's the episode.
Yeah.
What else did I want to say? Oh, just ongoing in the Sean and Pooja saga because I'm
Oh
still getting
yeah.
messages about it. He posted today or yesterday like a bunch of photos from a trip to New Orleans that he took, and he looks very single in the photos. Like it's him with like another couple
Y-
basically, and
Yeah.
someone was like, I wonder if this was supposed to be a couples trip that turned
And
into
Pooja didn't come.
yeah.
Was his
So
left hand in any pictures? Because if you purposely leave it
oh,
out, that's what I'm thinking.
I
If you purposely leave your hand out of the pictures, you're making a
wait, I'm
statement
gonna
about
look
not including the
right
ring.
now because this is important information. Let's see. Sean, I look at his Instagram like a lot now because
He's
I'm
probably in the
so
top search
curious.
bar.
I saw a meme today, like one of those like quote memes that was like, I'm really tired and have to go to bed, but I cannot figure out if this person I barely know is divorced or not.
It's like I think all of us have those couples that you check in on occasionally, like super
Yeah.
hyper specific random celebrity couples, and you're like, oh, I wonder if they're still together. Like, oh, that's so sad if
Yep.
they're not.
Okay, so the first he posted like 10 photos. The
Hmm.
first one is him sitting having a drink with his left hand like clearly visible. Like maybe it's the front of the photo and there's no ring on it.
Well, that's the
So there we
announcement.
go.
That's the
That's it.
announcement, I think.
That's it. All
Oh,
right,
that's
this
sad.
baby
That makes sense.
is ready to not have me on this call anymore.
Of course.
So
Bye, baby. Oh my
Mary,
God.
thank you so much. We
Thank you for
appreciate
having
having you
me.
on the podcast every time you're on, but especially
I
for
love
these
being here.
recaps.
Of course. I
Yay.
love being
And
here and I love the show.
yes. And we'll have you on again soon, of course.
Love it.
And I will say goodbye to everybody with our sign off. Namaste, bitches.
Bye.
Bye, Mary.